Something I've been thinking a lot about this week is how many of us confuse possibility with certainty. We think that something doesn't become possible until we know for sure that it is, until we have all the evidence in hand for how it can be possible. And not just for someone else, but for us personally. The thing is, this isn't the meaning of possibility. The dictionary defines possibility as a thing that may happen or be true, but is not certain. So you see, possibility is not conditional on certainty. In recent months, I've noticed an uptick in the number of women facing a possibility yes block when they take my free yes block assessment over on my website. It's not uncommon at this time of year when we start to face up to the things that haven't gone to plan, that haven't worked out the way we wanted, and our hopes and dreams for the year start to feel like an impossibility. Like many of you, I too have things that haven't panned out for me the way I hoped by this time of year. But I know this doesn't mean for sure that they won't. In fact, I have learned over the years that the only way to guarantee they won't be possible is if I close the door on their possibility. If I buy into my old stories and limiting beliefs and tell myself that what I want isn't possible for me. I'll be honest, Possibility and I have definitely had a few rough moments over the years, but today we are stronger than ever together. And I know firsthand when you leave the door open to possibility, when you say yes to everything your heart desires being possible, even if you don't yet know for sure how it will be. My friend, life gets very exciting indeed. Last week at a restaurant in Bangkok, I was reminded of how saying yes to possibility in my life opened the door to the kind of extraordinary experiences I never imagined I could live. And today I'm going to share that story with you in the hope that you'll be inspired to give possibility a seat at your table. Plus, I want to offer you my tips on how you can do exactly that. If you're ready to turn impossible into impossible, then join me and let's talk about saying yes to possibility. Welcome to the Self Creation School podcast for women who are ready to ditch mediocrity, step up and get more of what they want, and finally say yes to a life that sets their soul on fire. I'm your host, Leanne Letica, self-creation coach, founder of the Self-Creation School, and queen of yes. If you're ready to play life by your own personal rulebook and give yourself permission to say yes to yourself and your wildest dreams, this podcast is the place for you. Welcome to this week's episode of the Self Creation School podcast, and a very warm hello to you from Hanoi in Vietnam, where my husband and I are spending the final 2 weeks of our 2-month slow travel experiment. If you've been following along, you'll know our plan was to spend the entire 2 months in Thailand, but we had intentionally left the last 2 weeks open. And last week, when we started looking at possible locations to fly to from Bangkok, Vietnam presented itself as a similar flight time, so suddenly it became a possibility. We've always wanted to visit Vietnam, but we've never been able to manage it for one reason or another. So in the end, it seemed like too good of a possibility to pass up. And now here we are. I have to say, though, if I thought the hustle and bustle of Bangkok was a shock to the system after the quiet of our time in Chiang Mai and Koh Samui, Hanoi takes hustle and bustle to a whole different kind of chaotic level. It sure is a very interesting place, and I love so much that inviting all of the possibilities to my table has led me here to finally experience this part of the world. Saying yes to possibility over the years truly has led me to all kinds of extraordinary experiences that I could never even imagine growing up in a small country town in Australia. And as I mentioned a moment ago, I was reminded of just how much saying yes to possibility has changed my life when I ate at a restaurant called Jumbo's Seafood in Bangkok last week. Let me share a story with you and take you back in time just a little to the early days of my relationship with my now husband. On our very first date, my husband took me to the best restaurant on the Gold Coast where we both lived at the time in Australia. It was a silver service restaurant and the kind of restaurant I had never before experienced. My husband suggested ordering seafood, something they were renowned for. And when I declined, explaining I didn't like seafood, having grown up in a small country town where the best thing at the local fish and chip shop was the potato scallops, he said in light-hearted seriousness, "That's okay, you're just uneducated." I have to be honest, no one gets to tell Leanne she is in anything, least of all uneducated and least of all on a first date. Can you imagine? It was a pretty jaw-dropping moment for me, even if it was meant lightheartedly. Now, I still don't know how and why we ever went on a second or a third date, but we did, and needless to say, I set out to educate myself on eating seafood before that happened. I was determined not to lose face the next time my new romance suggested we order seafood. So I decided to take myself on a solo date to a seafood restaurant and order the least appealing thing on the menu. I wanted to get the worst possible thing out of the way because I figured if I could stomach that, I'd be ready for anything. I ordered baby octopus. And as I sat waiting for it to come, I told myself on repeat, it's possible that it's edible. It's possible this won't kill me. And guess what? When I took that first bite with my eyes screwed very tightly shut, honestly, it must have been a sight, I discovered that baby octopus wasn't just edible, it was surprisingly delicious. By the end of the meal, I was sitting there thinking, wait a minute, it's possible I actually enjoyed this. And if I enjoy this, it's possible I might enjoy eating other seafood too. Opening the door to this possibility led me to start trying new kinds of seafood with newfound confidence any chance I got. I latched on very quickly. Although, truthfully, if there's one thing that will motivate me, it's the chance to prove anyone wrong about my capabilities. But fast forward a little, and finally came the day for eating crab. Now, there is skill required for eating crab. Skill I obviously hadn't acquired growing up in a country town meat and tree veg family. So I had to admit it was beyond my capability and asked my husband to show me how to crack and eat a crab. And whilst I did enjoy it, the thing about crab is it's fiddly. It takes a whole lot of time to pick it apart and it's messy. So in the end, eating crab for me was way too much effort for far too little in return. Then a short time later, we were in Singapore at a restaurant called, you might guess, Jumbo Seafood. They are famous for their black pepper crabs. So my husband insisted this was the dish to have. Once again, I found myself sitting there telling myself, it's possible I will enjoy this. And turns out the crab was extraordinary. It was worth every bit of effort to extract every last bit of crab. And I was eating crab long after my husband had finished. I'll never forget him laughing as he watched me and saying, whoever thought it was possible you'd enjoy eating crab this much? Whoever? Indeed. To this day, we talk about that meal. In fact, we've been known to detour to Singapore on our way to Europe specifically to enjoy eating black pepper crab at Jumbo Seafood. And stumbling across Jumbo Seafood in Bangkok last week took me right back to that one moment in Singapore some 22 or more years ago that confirmed to me what possibility really is. A door to extraordinary experiences you'd never imagine if you didn't say yes. Now, the reason I share this story is that opening the door to the possibility I could eat seafood, not even to the possibility I could enjoy it, just that I could eat it, has led me to all kinds of extraordinary experiences beyond just food that have enriched my life in previously unimaginable ways. Because the thing about experiencing possibility in one area of your life is that it spills over to every area of your life. It becomes a mindset, a way of approaching life. That, my friend, is what's just so exciting about saying yes to possibility. But you do need to open the door to it. And so I want to offer you some tips on how to do exactly that. Let's get cracking, pun absolutely intended. And let's start with the one thing that for me is perhaps the most fundamental: permission. For something to be possible, you must give yourself permission to allow it to be possible, not just for everyone else, but for you. And give yourself that permission, understanding that allowing something to be possible doesn't mean anything more than that. It doesn't mean that you have to go ahead and confirm that it's possible. It simply means you allow it to exist as a possibility. Remember, possibility is something that may happen or be true, but isn't certain. So let go of the need for something to be certain in order for it to be possible, and just allow it to be what it is: a possibility. I find it fun to think of giving possibility permission to exist in my life like this. I'm simply inviting possibility to pull up a seat at my table and entertain me with its conversation. Which brings me to my second tip. No doubt there are going to be a few very loud voices at your table who risk drowning out what possibility has to say. Voices like your limiting stories, your past experiences and self perceived failures, your unworthiness or not enoughness, your fears of judgment. If you have trouble seeing new possibilities in your life or believing they might be possible for you, I can almost guarantee you have very loud guests at your table who are more than happy to speak out of turn. And what I want you to remember is this: it's your table. You get to say who sits at your table. You get to show unruly guests a door, and you get to close the door on uninvited guests. So, for the sake of hearing what possibility has to share with you, set the table for two. Set aside some time for you and possibility, and only you and possibility, to come together. Leave the limiting stories, the self judgment, the criticism, or worry about what others will think, the need to know the how. Leave them all off the guest list and just give you and possibility the chance to explore, to wonder, and to daydream. I love setting the scene for this conversation with this one question: if anything at all was possible, what would be truly remarkable to do, have, and experience in my lifetime? Then commit to accepting whatever comes up. Remember, no uninvited guests, no questioning the how, no judging if it will be possible for sure, no worrying about what others will think. Just accept whatever comes to mind. And what I recommend you do here is use a journal to write down freely everything that surfaces, every little detail, no matter how wild and wonderful or how insignificant it seems. Remember, this is just for you. You don't ever have to share this conversation with anyone. Like I said before, you don't even have to do, have, or experience any of what you write down if you choose not to. What's important here is that you give yourself permission to acknowledge all of the possibilities, and you allow them to simply exist, free of those limiting stories, self judgment, worries, and fears. Then, my third tip is to invite those loud voices back to the table one at a time. Lay out the possibilities that excite you, the ones that you feel drawn to pursue, even though you might have no clue how, and open the table to conversation. What do your limiting stories have to say about these possibilities? What does your self judgment have to say? What does the warrior within you have to say? What does your fearful one have to say? Allow these voices to bring their concerns to the table and acknowledge them. Let them feel seen, let them feel heard. Then go about addressing their concerns one at a time. Now, there are two things here I find really helpful. The first is to learn how to rewrite these stories, to shift these stories from stories that limit what's possible for you to stories that make what's possible limitless. This is the kind of deep work I do with my one on one coaching clients. And it is beyond the scope of what I can share on a podcast episode. But you can start learning how to do this by using my self creation shift method, which I make available to download for free when you take my free Yes Block assessment over on my website. That link is in the show notes for you. And if you have taken that quiz and you're not yet using the shift in your everyday life, my friend, you are missing out on a powerful opportunity to shift your stories to yes and change your everyday life experience. I use the self creation shift method in my life every single day. Yes, I still have outspoken guests who love to gatecrash my dinner party. I still have to rewrite the stories they tell me all of the time. And unless you're done expanding your life experience and you're happy to settle for things as is for the rest of your days, you will need to rewrite your stories every day too. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but here's the thing. Whenever we expand who we be and what's possible in our world, we are going to come up against our old limiting beliefs. If we don't keep rewriting them, they will limit us. They will keep us stuck right where we are. And it does get a whole lot easier over time to rewrite your stories, to not buy into them as quickly and as wholly. But the truth is, they can and will still come up so long as you say yes to trying on every possibility you can imagine for size. So I encourage you to take another look at the self creation shift method and start practicing it in those everyday moments when you find yourself feeling stuck or limited in any way. Now, the second thing that is very helpful in embracing possibility and in rewriting your limiting stories and beliefs is what I call the beliefs bridge. I talk about the beliefs bridge in depth way back in episode 6 of the podcast titled What Kind of Woman Are You and Why It Matters? So I definitely encourage you to take a listen in on that episode. But essentially, here's how the beliefs bridge works. One of the things that happens when you try to shift your stories from something being impossible to suddenly being possible is that your internal storyteller will not jump on board with it. And it will speak even louder than ever to try and convince you that this new story isn't true. It will pull out every trick in the book to make you drop this new story and stick with the old one. So, when it comes to shifting your limiting beliefs, taking small steps and slowly upgrading your belief to your new ideal belief is going to be your best friend. You want your storyteller on side with you. So, you need to start with a story it can agree with. For example, for me, going from I don't like eating seafood to I love seafood is simply going to be too big of a jump. My storyteller is going to argue that is so not true. Who are you kidding? But if I go from I don't like seafood to it's possible I could eat seafood, that is a story my storyteller is much more likely to concede. It is possible and it's not too absolute. So you lay down this story as a plank on your beliefs bridge. And once you feel comfortable hanging out there, you lay down the next plank. So you might go from it's possible I could eat seafood to other people enjoy eating seafood. It's possible I can enjoy eating it too. Then you hang out there. And when you feel ready, you lay the next plank and the next plank until finally you've bridged the gap between your old limiting belief to your new ideal belief, the belief that supports what you want being possible. So you go belief by belief, one plank at a time, from I don't like eating seafood until eventually you hold the belief that it's possible you love eating seafood. Each belief along the way will support you in taking action that opens the door to that possibility becoming your reality. So, again, check out episode 6 for a more in depth guide to using the beliefs bridge to help you shift your limiting stories. It's a great tool to have in your self creation toolkit. The final tip I want to offer you is this: have trust. Trust what's possible for you won't go past you. Trust in the process and that everything will unfold perfectly for you. Trust in the timing of how it unfolds, and trust that in trusting that how the things your heart dreams of are possible will be revealed. Trusting means letting go of how things turned out in the past and how things are in your life right now. Trusting means knowing that your tomorrow rests only on how you choose to do things today, right now, in this moment. My friend, if you do the work to change your story around what's possible for you, you will change who you believe yourself to be. If you change who you believe yourself to be, you will change how you show up in your world. And when you change how you show up in your world, I promise you, your tomorrow and every tomorrow after that has no choice than to be different from your past. You must have trust. Focus on letting go of the past by rewriting your limiting stories. Get to know the future you who lives out your possibilities as her reality. Get to know her intimately. Then focus on becoming her just one small habit at a time, one small way of thinking at a time, one small belief at a time. Just one step at a time, one day at a time. If you will commit to doing that, the how to every possibility you can imagine and then some will be revealed. Remember, possibility is not about certainty. It's about opening the door. It's about pulling up a chair and letting possibility have a voice at your table. It's about silencing the guests that no longer serve you, rewriting the stories that limit you, and laying plank after plank on the beliefs bridge towards becoming the woman who lives the life you truly want. It starts with permission, permission to imagine, to dream, to believe that what's possible for others could be possible for you too. It grows as you give yourself the space to wander, free from judgment or fear. And it takes root as you rewrite your stories, step into trust, and show up each day as the version of you who believes in the possibilities you hold in your heart. When you say yes to possibility, you're not just saying yes to a single dream. You're saying yes to a mindset that opens doors you never even knew existed. You're saying yes to experiences, relationships, and opportunities that will enrich your life in ways, my friend, you can't yet imagine. So here's my invitation to you. Take one step today to say yes to possibility. Maybe it's setting time aside to dream without judgment. Maybe it's rewriting one small limiting story. Maybe it's simply telling yourself, it's possible this could work out. Whatever that step looks like for you, take it and trust that every step forward will lead you closer to the life you deserve. And as you do, I want you to remember this: the impossible becomes I'm possible the moment you say yes to what could be. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If you found this episode helpful, I'd love for you to share it with someone who could use a little possibility in their life. And if you're ready to go deeper, don't forget to take my free Yes Block assessment and download my self creation shift method to start shifting your stories to yes today. You'll find that link in the show notes. Or, of course, reach out if you'd like a more one on one personalized approach to help you fast track your yes. Have a wonderful week, my friend. I'll be back next Wednesday with another conversation to help you create a life you love. Until then, be the woman who says yes. Hey, want to know what's stopping you from saying yes to you and a life you love? Head over to selfcreationschool.com/yesblock and take my free 60-second quiz to find out what's standing in your way today. And I'll send you my self-creation shift process for shifting it. That's selfcreationschool.com/yesblock. I'll see you there.